What's up, YouTube? It's a convict's perspective. It's your boy Rojo. Today we're going to talk about a gang out of Texas known as Tango Blast. Now, Tango Blast, man, their origination, man, it's up for debate, man. Some places say they got roots going back to the 70s and 80s. I kind of find that hard to believe personally, being that I lived in Houston for a decade, and I just don't think that's accurate. I think they sprung up more. I mean, the Texas Department of Corrections lists them as springing up in 1998, but I would give them a little more longevity than that personally. I would say in the early 90s, man, they started forming. And basically what we got with these guys is there's like a bunch of major areas, right? Texas is way different than California, man. So let me try to explain this the best I can. You got Houston, fourth largest city in the country. I lived there a long time. I know the ins and outs a little bit. It's changed considerably, but I still get it, right? You got Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, El Paso. You got like the Rio Grande Valley, you know, and then there's all kinds of smaller places in between. Texas is huge. So what Tango Blast is, man, is it's like a one big organization that has like subdivisions under it, man. So I mean, like each one of those cities I mentioned, Houston, they go by Houstone. Uh, like San Antonio is San Anto or Orijones, and man, Rio Grande Valley is like Veucos or something like that. Corpus Christi's Corpitos. I mean, all these little different towns or tongos, although they're separate, they all function together as one in a sense. And what I'm saying about Texas being different, man, is man, while you're in Houston, you could be in a gang. You might be, man, let's just call it the gangsters, right? Let's call it the gangsters. Okay, that's your gang. Well, then there's also a clique that you're in, which could consist of members from other gangs, and your gang might even not particularly get along with the clique that you're also a member of individually. And then you can also be a Tongo, right? So so all these gang members from all these towns, from all kinds of different barrios, they go to county jail, they go to prison, and man, there's a bunch of traditional gangs there. You got the Texas Syndicate, you got the Mexican MA, it's the Mexican Mafia of Texas, basically. You got Barrio Azteca, you got the Tri City Bombers. There's a bunch of Latino gangs. There's like the Texas Chicano Brotherhood, the Chicano Brotherhood of Texas. I don't know how their acronym goes, but for years and years, the people from whatever area that particular gang dominates, they were kind of going to fall under them, loosely, but I mean, ultimately that gang would have to say so in that area. Well, Tongo kind of changed all that, man, because they have such a spread out geographical, area where they function. There's nowhere in Texas they don't function. None of the gangs traditionally do in Texas, but none of them have broke so big and so widespread as the Tango Blast. I mean, they're everywhere. And man, they've blown up, man. The reason they've blown up is because just like California, where you got the Mexican Mafia and the Western Familia, Aryan Brotherhood, and they all slammed them down in these indeterminate shoe programs. The same thing was happening in Texas. Texas Syndicate's been slammed down for decades. The Mexican MA's been slammed down for decades. And Texas got a lot of gangs. And they slam a lot of them. But for some reason, because Tango Blast doesn't really have a hierarchy, leadership, everybody kind of has a vote. They don't got no like written down rules that the Texas Department of Corrections didn't validate these guys. So they were out on these main lines and they started growing like man like crazy. And it's gonna be a gang like this is really appealing to the newer generation. A lot of the newer generation, like man, we've talked about this before, how they're more, they're more like urban versus traditional like cholo type of dudes, right? So the Tango Blast, they're gold grills. They're from Houston, so they're into that screwed and chop music. They're rolling on swangers, them big ass rims. If you don't know what they are, look them up. But man, it's a different culture down there, man. It's rasa, but it's a trip compared to what we're used to out here. I mean, excuse me. Some of the norteños in the Bay are similar to the Latinos you would find in Houston. You know what I mean? With that pop in my collar, you feel me player kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's just a different sauce. You know what I mean? But I can speak for Houston, man. I know they're deep, bro. There's tens of thousands of them just in Houston, and like the sites I've looked up, man, to do research, like the Texas Department of Public Safety and the Texas Department of Corrections, they estimate their membership between like 14 and 30,000. Man, I would think there's probably almost that many in Houston because Tango Blast is so loosely affiliated that okay, it's real strong. So you go to prison and you're like, man, I'm blasting, So they're basically running every prison down in Texas. Period. I mean, there might be other people with small little holds on specific units or maybe some county jails or something here and there. But I'm always gonna say it like it is. Tango Blast runs the Texas Department of Corrections and probably 90% of the county jails out there. That's just facts. They're too deep. They're not playing, and yeah, they're all these other guys are slammed down. You know what I mean? These guys could do what they want. They don't have, like I said, they don't really have rules. They don't have to. They don't get sent on missions. You know what I mean? So that's appealing to all these newer, younger cats coming into the system. Like people would look at Tango Blast and be like, well, they're dropouts. You know what I mean? Because a lot of at first, when I talked to people and asked about them, they'd be like, oh, they're like Texas Syndicate dropouts. Okay, yeah, I see it in a sense. That a lot of these people used to, perform activities at the request of the Texas Syndicate. Well, that played out. You know what I mean? They're like, man, we ain't trying to do this no more. These guys are back here in the hole. We're putting in all the work. I don't know the specifics, but I've seen history unfold with other group segments, and you know, we all know I'm right. They just got tired of it. So what happens is they go out there, they start recruiting like crazy. These newer people, these young new first termers and stuff coming off the streets, they've never been associated with any kind of prison gang or anything like that. So are they a dropout? No, not really. They came and joined an organization that they felt comfortable with. So although you might look at it as that's a DO organization, man, things change over time. I mean, we could say the same thing with the Bulldogs. You know what I mean? What they're doing is real similar. What happened with them is real similar to what happened with the Bulldogs, although not quite so formal with the NF running stuff over the Bulldogs and the syndicate, running stuff over the Tongos. But it's the same idea. You know what I mean? They were just like, man, we're gonna go do our own thing independent, and their thoughts just caught. You know, you got to look at. Everybody knows how society is nowadays. We talked about this before. There was the carnalismo, and like now everybody wants to be independent. Well, this group, this Tango Blast, which is the deepest group in there, offers you this. It's the strongest group in there. Offers you this. You don't gotta. It's not a blood out, blood in, blood out kind of thing. You know what I mean? You get jumped in, and just like you would in the hoods traditionally for decades now. But like these Tongo dudes, they don't gotta like follow orders or attend meetings or pay like percentages, and they don't have to do hits, man. It's like collectively they will move against the enemy. Like they don't get along with the MA, the Barrio Aztecas, the Texas MA, the Barrio Aztecas, the syndicate. They don't get along with none of them people. I mean, I don't know about the relationship with like the Tri City Bombers, or even if the Tri City Bombers are deep enough to be a threat anymore. But that used to be a really big group down there. But I don't think nobody, I don't think nobody wants business with these dudes, man, because just in numbers, you know what I mean? And they're like I said, they're not soft, man. I mean, it's just like I talk about out here in California. You get a group of some people, and whether they politic like you, or you think that they're dropouts, or you think that they're less than the original gangs that come out of your area. Don't get it twisted, man. They're still men. You know what I mean? And they're still gonna try to impress one another. You know what I mean? They're like, man, let's go get off on these dudes. They're gonna ride. They're gonna rise to the occasion. Just like them Northern Riders will, just like them Bulldogs will. If you put them all in one area, what would be the outcome? Like, would Tongo win against the Syndicate? Man, they're equal. A man's a man. Neither group have any. They don't got no sissies in the groups. I'm telling you, I know some syndicates. I know some tongos. You know what I mean? Since middle school, and they're not messing around. So anywhere that they cross paths, I'm pretty sure it's on site, like it would have been with the NF and the MA. You know, 10, 20 years ago. You know what I mean? But man, so some major incidents with these guys. They used to be called the Four Horsemen, or referred to as the Four Horsemen, and that's just like the main power where their groups come from: Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Austin. You know what I mean? And then over time, other hoods, other cities probably interacted with people in these groups from the main places, Houston and Dallas being the biggest cities there, and they're like, man, I like what they're doing. They're gaining power. So now there's all kinds. The Rio Grande Valley, you know what I mean? That's a big place. That goes basically from Brownsville up to, man, probably past Nuevo Laredo and stuff, man. But there's all kinds of activity right there. All kinds of gente. You know what I mean? All kinds of stuff with the cartels. There's a lot of groups on these border counties down there by the Rio Grande all the way up to El Paso. There's a lot of gangs out there, man. El Paso's, man, they're deep, bro. Them dudes in El Paso ain't playing. Like, Texas ain't playing. Like, I've discussed this with people before about, well, what's gangs are harder, Texas gangs or California gangs? Man, a gang is a gang. We're not in like South Dakota or something. You know what I mean? Where people are gonna be behind in the times, and they're not going to understand, the movements and goals and stuff of a prison gang. You know what I mean? Texas is Texas, and the way that their prisons are set up down there, I don't know about any of the newer ones. I just know about their older prisons, man. They're designed, bro, where you could get messed up in them prisons, man. They're old, and there's no security, bro. Back in the days, they used to have like inmate trustees that would be like basically snitches and keep the peace. You know what I mean? I forgot they had a system. I forgot what it's called, man. But it was just like a little, like a building rep kind of dude. That's what you would call them out here. But in Texas, man, they were real bad. They thought they were like cops and stuff. I'm surprised more of them didn't get dusted off. But Texas, they don't they don't have the same security and design structure in their buildings as we do in California, man. So if something pops off in Texas, and a lot of them prisons, they could take it siege for a while and just do whatever they want. A lot of them prisons down south are really poorly designed strategically for the administration. You know what I mean? It's these big old dorms and stuff they got down there, bro. You could get messed up in a Texas jail, man. It's like, and another thing about Texas prisons, man, you don't got them. You don't got no AC. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of ours don't either. You know what I'm saying? But man, Texas is bad, bro. The humidity down there. I mean, you think it's hot in California when it's 100 degrees. Don't get me wrong, it's hot. Man, if you're around Houston and it's 90 degrees with 95% humidity, it's life altering, bro. I'm telling you, it's not the business. You know what I mean? But so anyway, like I was saying, in 1998, that's when they TDC acknowledged the four horsemen. Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Austin. And TDC, the Texas Department of Corrections, kind of gives these guys a birth date of 1998 because of a riot that they had at Clemens. It's a prison in Texas, and they got off. You know what I mean? There was a riot in '01 with these guys between the Tango Blasters and the Barrio Aztecas, and then like pretty soon right after this riot, they had formed a truce. But less than a year later, the Barrio Aztecas broke it and stabbed one of these Tango guys, and then the Tango guys retaliated and beat the mess out of these guys. I mean, so there's been a whole lot of back and forth, and the falling out, the official falling out of the syndicate was like in April of '02. Um, the syndicate murdered some dude, at JB Conley. You know what I mean? That's another institution in Texas, and that's pretty much ever since then. You know, them and the Texas Syndicate have been going back and forth, and they like see this is another situation where they're not going to see each other that often. You know, because if you're validated as a syndicate, you're in the hole. You know what I mean? Whereas Tango Blast is not necessarily going to be in the hole unless they get in trouble. You know, I don't know if this has changed, man. This information that I have is collected through, you know, my own research, and you know, like I said, I got homeboys that are tangos and I got homeboys that are syndicate. So I don't know how current. I mean, things change all the time. I mean, like man, I didn't hear about people getting let out of the shoe for months. You know what I mean? As far as you know, California validated gang people, but yeah, man. Gang life in Texas, man. While any gang life, you know, you can see the similarities. You know, as comparing Texas to California, Houston to the Bay, you know, San Antonio to L.A. Um, Man, it's a trip down there. You know, it would take you like if you move to like say you move to Houston, it would take you a good while to figure out how they get down there, man. I mean, you go to okay, you're from gangsters, 25th Street gangsters, let's say. You go to jail, right? Okay, now you're from X part of town. Let's say you're from the Southwest, where I was from, A-Leaf. So you're from Southwest, A-Leaf, Texas. You know, you're from 25th Street gangsters. You go to the county jail. There's dudes from your clique in there, right? They, like I said, they might not get along with your certain gang, but you ride with this clique. And then you're also Rock Houstone. Houstone would have priority over everything once you're incarcerated. But what's the trip about them? You know, even though they're a prison gang, I don't care what anybody says. They're not messing around. They're slanging. They're slanging and banging. You know what I mean? They're involved in everything we're involved in, inside and out. You know what I mean? So you know, I'm not trying to label them like to try to get them in trouble. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna label them that out of respect because they earned it. They're not messing around. They're doing everything. They've been hit with indictments, as many as we have, you know, probably more because they're operating on a much bigger scale than we are in a lot of big places, man. I mean, Houston and Dallas are major places. You know, San Antonio's big too. Those are all multi-million, you know, inhabitants in these cities. You know, we got the Bay Area and Sacramento. You know what I mean? San Jose. They got that plus a whole lot more. You know, there's a lot of these dudes, bro. And they, the thing with these guys, they're not obligated to function when they get out, though. You know what I mean? So if they're getting together and functioning on the outside, like running, you know, running as Tango Blast together, those are the ones that are really with the business, man, because they give you the option of functioning. You know what I mean? You don't have to do anything. You go back to your hood, you know, and you're just all about 25th Street again. You know what I mean? Or you can function in their regiments, and they're all so loose that man, you can kind of come and go as you please as long as you like not telling on nobody, not messing nobody over, you know, things like that. And there's no normal structure, man. So it's hard for anybody to really get a grasp on what they're doing at any given time. That's what makes these guys such a problem. They don't have no expectations that you can like that you could get a beat on. You know, so if you had a problem with these dudes, you know, they don't necessarily work out at the specific time every day. So we can't do it here. Um, they don't all kick it in one little area of this day room. You know what I mean? Man, they intermingle. They do it moving. You know, they're rowdy. These are some rowdy boys. You know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna keep it 100. Tango Blast isn't playing. Um, you know, the Texas Syndicate, man, they started out here in Cali. You know, and they had the strongest stronghold on Texas for a long time, man. They started out here in Folsom. You know, and as those guys paroled and went back to Texas and whatnot, you know, they established a syndicate down there, and it thrived for a long time, and it was the boss hog of all their groups all the way until you know the late '90s. I mean, everything started falling apart everywhere as far as traditional groups go in the late 90s. That's when everybody started having problems. And it's just that newer generation, like we talked about. I mean, you could be like, oh, those guys are weak, they're falling off, and whatever. The syndicate, the MA, the NF. Man, it's changing times. People don't have the same morals and sense of community that they did, from the probably the 50s and 60s. Like, man, the Latin King started in the 50s, so Latinos been doing this stuff a long time. Even longer than that, before there was all these big name groups. Man, the Raza was doing it. You know what I mean? They've been doing it, moving for years. I mean, they're the most advanced in everything. Most structured, most everything. That's what these groups are going to be. And Texas is no different. You know, the syndicate's a serious group. They're with the business. They controlled stuff for a long time, and they're still a major factor down there. Don't think they're not. But these Tango Blasts are getting all this notoriety because of this lack of structure. They're out there acting an animal. They're just killing stuff on the streets and doing crazy stuff, man. And it's the same in prison. While as the Texas Syndicate would function like, you know, my old homeboys and y'all's homeboys, y'all's, California big homies from either group. That's how the syndicate's gonna function. Tango Blast dudes are just gonna be all out there like, "Arr, arr, arr." You feel like they're just their drive is different. It's just a different get down with the change in the times. You know what I'm saying? But basically, to sum it up about Tango Blast, man, it is a huge organization, man. The biggest stronghold is Houston. That's the biggest city in Texas. You know what I mean? It's a huge area, man. It's one city that's the size of the whole Bay Area, and maybe bigger in geographical area. And when I was down there, man, there was about, man, a third. Man, it's a very interracially mixed city. There's tons of Latinos. There's tons of Asians. There's tons. Man, everybody's equally represented down there. And oh, another thing about the Tongos, man, they'll take anybody too, man. I mean, they're predominantly Mexican, just like Norteños or Sureños would be, but their membership's not exclusive to any kind of race or nothing like that. But back to what I was saying, man, they're deep, bro. They run Houston, they run Dallas, man, they run everything. You can't. There's not one of these areas that you could say that they're not the predominant person. We could break it down, excuse me, real specifically. Okay, in the county jail, the fifth floor might belong to the syndicates, or the third floor, west wing might belong to Barrio Azteca. But man, you guys know what I'm talking about when I say that they're the boss hog down there, and it's just the changing times. Uh, yeah, you got man, you got all these major metropolitan areas with a million something people, and they're the dominant gang. I mean, think about how many members that is. I think they're underrepresented by all the stats. They're gonna say 30,000. Man, I'd be willing to bet you there's 30,000 in Houston, at least 20. They're deep, and every hood, just about every hood in Houston, when they go to jail, will function under the Houstone umbrella, especially the Raza. You know what I mean? So I mean, we're talking about an overwhelming amount of people. Like, man, when I lived in Houston, gangs were first starting to become out there real good. Man, the first ones down there were the Gangster Disciples. I mean, they had came from Chicago. A bunch of people migrated from Chicago and Detroit during the 80s, and with them came, their groups. So the first groups down there that I ran into was the Gangster Disciples and then the Latin Kings. Sorry, I got a scratchy throat today, y'all. Um, they're dominant. They're still out there. Latin Kings are still out there handling business. I don't know about their interactions so much with these Tongo vatos, but Latin Kings are a force, in Texas. I mean, Gangster Disciples, and then later on, after Colors, everybody thought they was Crips and Bloods. So like the real original, besides like little neighborhood stuff, I mean, like the Fifth Ward Circle or South Park or neighborhood barrios or whatever. The Gangster Disciples and Latin Kings were the first gangs of, you know, nationwide importance that I had came across. You know, after Colors came out, everybody thought they were Crips and Bloods. And don't get me wrong, some real Crips and some real Bloods are down there. They came from, Southern California or whatnot. But now, like the blood, like as far as the brothers down there, Bloods and Crips and Gangster Disciples dominate. As far as the Latinos, you got Tango Blast and you got some prison gangs. You know what I mean? That's what it is. You got the Latin Kings. You know what I mean? I used to run with the Latin Kings out there. And their politics are real similar to us in the Norte. And just their get down in general. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people think you got to be a certain race to be any one of these groups, man. Some groups are really really strict, man, but there's exception to every rule. You know what I mean? It's all about who you know, who you mess with, because rules will be bent for the right reasons. You know what I mean? For the right homie, they don't give a damn. You know what I mean? Latin Kings, man, we have there was black dudes, there was Latinos, there was whites. I mean, it was actually in Houston the most ethnically diverse group that I seen. You know what I mean? Tongos, there's a lot of whites and there's some blacks and stuff too. But yeah, the Latin Kings were real mixed origin. You know what I'm saying? Man, there's Bloods, Crips, Disciples, Kings, Latin Counts. Man, there's MS-13. There's Sureños out there that are loyal to the Texas Mexican Mafia. There's some that are loyal to the California Mexican Mafia. Of course, there's MS-13. There's 18th Street. You know what I mean? Them gangs are huge too. But what's running Texas, man, is these Tango Blasts, man. And what it is, it's just a whole bunch of different hoods from everywhere. Hoods that didn't even get along on the streets. Hoods that never heard of other hoods. They join Tango from their town, and then Tango comes together collectively in prison. And the numbers and the manpower and the level of business these dudes are with has them running things in Texas right now. But it's your boy Rojo, man. I kind of ramble a little bit, you know. I don't know what's wrong with me. Mm. But man, y'all had me messed up last night too. Had your boy drinking a little bit. My apologies on that YouTube live. Man, I don't know what was wrong with my mic. I haven't done nothing different with it, and all of a sudden it's working. I don't know, bro. I'm no IT guy, you know what I mean? But I am computer literate to a degree farther than most probably, and I couldn't figure it out. And what it was probably, man, I was under a little pressure. You know what I mean? I got you guys waiting on me, and I made these promises to y'all that, man, I'm gonna drink a shot in this. I went on Instagram and did it. I tried to post it, during while Flacco was talking live to let you guys know I'd be on Instagram. So I got to pay a couple of you guys the shots I owe you, but I'll be back on live this weekend. It might not be a long one. I'll jump on there real quick. And those of you that donated that didn't get to see me, have my little drink, I'll do it at the end because I don't want to get all messed up like I did last night and start talking like, I'm just not that bright. You feel me? You guys have me trash, bro. But anyway, this is your boy Rojo, Convict's Perspective, man. And man, Tango Blast is with the business. Okay, they're deep. They're not slowing down in their recruiting, and they don't take nothing from nobody. So watch out for them boys. They ain't playing. Have a good day, YouTube, and I'll be back at you soon. Much love.